Welcome back to the Entrepreneur to Employer podcast, the show that is dedicated to helping first-time business owners implement the right systems, hire and retain top talent, and build a business that doesn't run them. I'm your host, Brian Montes. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that can strike fear into the heart of just about any business owner, and that's losing your top performers. Bottom line is your best employees are the backbone of your business. You spend a lot of time and money hiring them, training them, getting them on board, and losing them costs a lot of money. Right? Because these are the ones that go above and beyond. They drive your growth. They help set the standard for the rest of the team. They help, they make sure that you actually don't have to live and breathe the business, right? But what happens when they start showing signs that they might be ready to jump ship? And, we don't always see those signs. Today, I want to talk about the top 7 signs that you need to look for that are going to be indications that your top performers might be getting ready to quit. Because if you can spot these red flags early on, you very well have a chance to turn things around. And hopefully you never get to this point, but I think we all do as business owners and operators. We get busy in our day-to-day. Sometimes we miss these signs or we don't see what's happening with one of our key employees, one of our top performers. And so knowing these red flags and having them in your foresight may help you save a relationship, save an employee that might be heading out the door. So let's dive into the 7 red flags that you might see as a business owner that is going to tell you that one of your top performers is going to head out the door. Number 1, bowing out of long-term planning. This is the first sign you have to watch out for, because when a top performer bows out of long-term planning conversations, there's a problem. So while you may hold a strategy session and they may physically be in the room or physically be on the Zoom call, they might not be contributing. So it's not that they're physically bowing out, they're mentally bowing out, right? You start to notice this person, they've always been eager to get involved in strategic initiatives. They've always been active in goal setting sessions. They're always talking about future projects. They're always thinking down the road as part within your strategy. And all of a sudden they are no longer contributing, right? Recently, they've become a lot less engaged. They're declining those discussions, or they're not engaged or interactive in those discussions. They might say they're too busy or that they need to focus on short-term tasks. But this change in behavior could signal something much deeper. When someone stops investing in the future of your business, it might be because they're already planning their own exit. So if you see this starting to happen, have a one-to-one conversation to understand what has changed and how can you re-engage them in your company vision. And how do you prevent this from happening? Well, having those regular conversations with them in the first place, right? If you've left them out on a ledge for the past quarter or 6 months because you've been busy and haven't been able to work on the business, and having those regular conversations with them, that's probably why you missed it. So if you're able to start having regular conversations with them and stay front of mind, then you will see this before it starts to happen. But again, if you don't, this is the red flag to look for. Number 2, a sudden surge in networking. The second sign is a sudden surge in networking activity, right? If you notice that your top performer is suddenly more active on LinkedIn, attending more industry events, or scheduling a lot of coffee meetings, it could mean they're exploring other opportunities. Now, networking is part of professional growth and development and should be part of your business as well. Just the question is, are you seeing a high percentage increase in their networking and what's going on? Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to head out the door, but it's something that you need to be aware of, right? Because a sudden increase in networking and those conversations could be a red flag that they're testing the waters to see what's out there for their next move. So to address this, consider whether they feel they've hit a ceiling in your organization. That might be why they're, starting to look outside. Sometimes your top talent is simply looking for more growth. And if you provide them with new challenges, growth opportunities, professional development, you might just keep them from jumping ship. This is where you sit down and you have that career mapping, career planning conversation. What's red flag number 3? They start hoarding knowledge. This is where, your employee who previously was very collaborative, willing to teach other people things and didn't hoard information, starts to pull back and they hoard information from people. Top performers, they're often the go-to expert in their areas, and they're usually willing to share their expertise with others. But if you notice that they've become less willing to share information or train others on your team, this is a warning sign. They might be hoarding knowledge to make themselves indispensable, or because they don't plan on sticking around long enough to train a replacement. So how do you deal with this? Encourage a culture of transparency and knowledge sharing. And when you make it clear that the success of the team relies on everyone's willingness to lift each other up. And again, have a heart-to-heart conversation with this team member to find out why they're pulling back, right? They've always had a history of sharing, training, teaching, and being, generous with their knowledge. This is where you have to have that conversation and find out why are they pulling back and see what it is that they're thinking before they actually jump ship. Number 4, last-minute schedule shifts. Let's talk about last-minute schedule shifts. If your top performer is suddenly making last-minute changes to their schedule, like taking unexpected days off or shifting their hours, could indicate they're interviewing for other positions, right? I had an employee one time that never called out sick. Never. I don't think they had used a sick day in over 2 years. In the 3rd year, they started calling out sick a lot. At that point, I wasn't thinking about red flags for any of my high performers leaving. And sure as could be, he was out interviewing. He was out networking. He was out interviewing. He was doing things so that he could change jobs. So if you start seeing changes in schedules, that could be a red flag that they are looking and interviewing. It's easy to overlook these changes because we all have personal lives, right? We all have family matters, and people have sick leave to use. So we don't want to question why they're taking sick leave. But if you start to see a pattern, it's worth a deeper look. Now, in this situation, it's best to have an open, non-confrontational check-in. Ask if everything's okay, if there's anything they need support with. This opens the door for them to share with you if they're feeling unfulfilled or if they're considering other opportunities. And whether or not they're honest with you is going to depend on the quality of your relationship with them. Red flag number 5, meeting behavior changes. Number 5 here is a noticeable change in their behavior during your meetings. You might notice that your top performers have started to become withdrawn, they're disengaged, they're even becoming more critical during those meetings. And again, you want honest feedback, you want candid feedback, you want candid conversations during your meetings, because that's how you fight the status quo. But if they become just negatively critical, and they haven't been that way before, something is going on. Or they could just zone out during the meetings. They could avoid eye contact. They could not take any notes. They could contribute less than usual. There's a lot of things that you need to watch for that could tell you that they may be on the way out. This change in demeanor could indicate that they're mentally checked out of your organization. And so if you spot this, it's time for a candid conversation. Ask them for feedback on what's working, what's not working. Sometimes they just need to feel heard and valued to re-energize that commitment. All right, what is red flag number 6? Work quality plateaus. The 6th sign is when a top performer's work quality plateaus. High achievers usually have a track record of going above and beyond, but if you notice their work is just meeting expectations rather than exceeding it like it always has been, it's a signal that they might be losing interest. They're just going to do just enough to get by so they don't get fired. Excuse me. Now, this can happen if they feel there's no longer a challenge, or they're not being recognized for their efforts, or if they're just burned out. There's a lot of reasons this could happen. So to turn this around, consider providing them new projects that align with their skills and passions. You have to understand what their career goals are and see if there's a career map you can help them with. Offer them opportunities for advancement or professional development. There's a lot of things you can do here, even as a small business, to re-energize them. What is number 7? Number 7 is they withdraw socially. The final sign is when a top performer starts to withdraw socially. If you're previous social, and if they were previously very social, if you're in office, they're always talking to coworkers, they have no problem talking to customers, clients, right? If they're highly, highly social, and even if they're remote, right? If they're very social on Slack or whatever you're using, and they're talking to other team members regularly, and then they start to pull back, that's a red flag, right? If you're in real life and this team member, say they used to go to lunch together with other team members and that has stopped, and they're just not interacting in those conversations, definitely a red flag. They may be emotionally disconnecting from the team because they're already halfway out the door. Now, on the flip side, they could have something going on in their personal life as well, because at the end of the day, we all have something going on in our personal lives, right? Every single one of us have something going on that we have to deal with outside of work. So it may not be a work-related matter. It could be a personal matter that is causing them to pull back socially. So you definitely have to tread very carefully here, and you don't want to assume that they're looking for a new job, because this does become one of the hardest signs to address. But it is crucial for you to check in on their well-being. their overall well-being. They might be facing burnout, they might be feeling isolated, they might be having a personal issue they're dealing with. A simple, genuine conversation can go a long way in understanding what's going on with them and how you can maybe support them. So there you have it, the top 7 signs your top performers are possibly going to quit. Let's do a quick recap if you're taking notes. Number 1, they bow out of long-term planning sessions. Number 2, there's a sudden surge in networking activities. Number 3, they start hoarding all of their knowledge. Number 4, last-minute schedule shifts become the norm for them. Number 5, their meeting behavior changes. Number 6, their work quality plateaus and they start doing just enough to make sure they don't get fired. And number 7, they withdraw socially. These signs don't necessarily mean an employee is definitely leaving, but they're signals that something is off. As a business owner, it is our job to create an environment where our top performers feel valued, challenged, and engaged. If you don't notice any of these signs, don't wait. Have these crucial conversations now because that puts you ahead of the curve. Show appreciation, find ways to re-engage your best people, spend time with them, making sure you understand where they want their career to go. Do those things proactively if you don't have any of these red flags. And if you do have some of these red flags, I've given you some tips today on what you can do to hopefully turn this around so you don't lose your top employees. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with other business owners who could benefit from this insight. And as always, if you need a personalized support in building a team that stays committed for the long haul, reach out to me. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your employees are your greatest asset, so let's not let them become your greatest loss. Until next week, we'll see you. Have a great week.